Chapter 40. Then here it is. He spun her around and with his hands on her hips, lifted and set her on the countertop. In one easy move, he pulled the loose shirt off over her head and dropped his mouth to hers. At first, he let his hands rest on the counter on either side of her hips. As things progressed, he moved them up her body. His hands settled on her breasts, covering them while he teased the sensitized hips. Her tongue dueled with his. Her hands rested loose on his hips for a moment, then moved around and under the loose waistband of his sweats to grip his ass. He stood between her parted knees and she pulled him closer, pressing her hips against the hard length of his cock. Heat from her body poured through the thick cloth. Unable to stop himself, he rolled his hips, rubbing his length along her core. She purred. The sound only served to make him hotter. He moved his mouth down her neck, trailing soft bites and kisses as he moved to her shoulder. His hands fell to her hips, and he lifted her slightly to scoot her closer to the edge of the counter. He almost lost control when she slid her hand down the front of his pants and wrapped it around him. He tried to take her hand to gently move it away, but she growled and shoved the loose pants off his hips. Her mouth found one nipple on his bare chest, and he dropped his head back as he fought to keep from plunging into her and taking her hard and rough. Still teasing the tight, sensitive button, she used one hand to guide him to her center. He felt her slick heat against the tip and groaned. She grabbed his ass again and yanked him against her, impaling herself on his staff as she bit down hard enough to make him groan. The sharp sting snapped the final thread of his control. He took her hips in his hands and pulled almost all the way out before slamming into her again, burying himself as far as he would go. He repeated the move, over and over. He felt her nails curl into his back as he kept going. She gasped. Her breath came hard and heavy. Yes, yes, more yes. He continued until he felt her clench around him and knew she was coming. He kept going, increasing his speed. He tilted her hips just a little, and felt as the tip of his cock started rubbing that spot deep inside. After just a few strokes, Jade threw her head back, screamed, and curled her fingers into his arms as she exploded around him again. This time, he let himself go as well. He held her hips hard against his as he emptied himself inside her. She wilted against him, exhausted. He gave himself a moment to catch his breath, then pulled out, mentally cursing himself when he realized he'd forgotten a condom. Gently, he picked her up and carried her back to their bed. After cleaning them both and making sure she hadn't broken the skin when she'd bitten him, he lay down beside her. I'm sorry. He laid one hand along the side of her face. About what? She looked confused. I followed you, intending to bring you back to bed. Things got out of hand and I lost control. He paused a moment, looking away for a second before meeting her eyes again. I forgot a condom. I know, I don't know why that's a problem though. She seemed genuinely confused. Baby, it's my job to protect you. I failed. You haven't failed me. You've done everything you could to help me. Getting you pregnant won't help you. Comprehension dawned across her face. She brought her hand up to his face, mirroring the way he held her. I'm not worried about getting pregnant. The only thing that makes me happier than being here with you now is the idea of a tiny version of you. His heart skipped a beat. She wanted to have his baby. He'd thought he'd never have a child, and he'd quit even thinking about the possibility a long time ago. His heart sped with the idea. He leaned close and kissed her gently on the forehead. We'll see.